Oh, it's Mr. McFeely.
I have seen the future, and he was wearing number 5, and I ain't talking about Robbie Grimsley, folks.
Took out the muffins, took out the trail mix, took out the cookies. They stole the monster cookies.
Wow, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Let's do some broadcasting.
Yeah. So do not adjust your calendar. It is Thursday, but the bat signal went out early this morning because the realignment wheel was spinning again, Michael. So
My dogs wake me up at 5:30 every morning, whatever it is, and of course, I check Twitter, because why would you not check Twitter in the first thing to find out what happened? And the sirens in our house, like, roo, roo, roo. My wife leaps out of bed. What's going on? There's a fire. I said, yeah, there's a fire because the Mountain West is imploding.
yes, something,
And that's going to affect FCS.
is it?
I got to go. Izzo is texting me, Michelle. Get out of my way. I'm like George Costanza when he shoves the kid aside and the old lady aside with the fire in the garbage can, running around the house with a chick with my head cut off.
All right, I got I got 2 emails waiting for you already here. So let's get the first one out of the way in there for. Now I lost it, of course. Dom and Mike. Oops, I clicked the wrong link. Sorry. Here we go. My thought is you have to move to the FBS. The Power 4 is going to split away, and the group of 6, I guess we can call that now, is going to take the top FCS teams and do their own playoff. It's all about the money, and the power conferences don't want to share any of TV money with anyone else.
Well, I mean,
we've heard the Power 4 split forever. I don't know if that's going to happen with the House deal, although there's no settlement on that yet.
Yeah, but now the South Dakota schools, literally the South Dakota and South Dakota State have sued the NCAA to stop the House settlement. So who knows what's going to happen there?
Yep.
But I mean, some of us have been saying for 5 years.
Correct. Yep.
And I don't want to name names, but it's been you and I. Mike McFeely and Dom Izzo have been saying for 5 years, NDSU's got to get out while they can, because all of this happening is not going to be good for FCS.
Nope.
Because you could tie the dominoes together and say, okay, so, now they're taking, SEC is taking the attractive Big 12 schools. Okay, so in the Big 12 then is taking the attractive AAC schools
or Pac-12 schools.
Right, or Pac-12 schools. But for our discussion,
correct.
It's the trickle down.
Yes.
Okay, so now the AAC and Conference USA are losing schools. So where are they going to look to backfill? They're going to take some of the better schools from FCS.
Yep.
So it's eventually going to affect everybody.
Correct.
At the lower level, because the mid-majors have to fill their leagues.
They need leagues.
When the big boys are stealing, it all makes sense. But for whatever reason, I don't know why, there were a number of people, including some in other media markets, that were trashing you and I and continue to do so for thinking that NDSU has to get to FBS. It's not about being big time. It's about not being Division II.
Small time, yeah.
Right.
Yep. Of what this is going towards.
Trying to stay with your peers.
Correct.
Not so much in terms of institution size, that's part of it, but just in terms of what you want to be athletically.
Yep.
And institutionally as well. I mean.
Well, we said it when Murray State got added. North Dakota State and Murray State there's nothing similar to that.
Nothing in common.
Nothing there.
Nothing in common.
No. Nope.
And frankly, if you look at the Summit League, the Dakota schools have nothing in common with a lot of the Summit League schools either.
Nope.
But that's a marriage of convenience. When it comes to FCS and the Valley and all this stuff, I mean, just look around you and see what's happening.
You're going to see it this
weekend.
We
want to win championships in FCS. Okay,
great.
So you won 2 of them.
Yeah.
Now you're playing Augustana this weekend in Brookings. Is that what you want? If you're in Brookings, if you're in Brookings, are you satisfied?
I think some are. I do. I think some are excited about that.
But we're winning championships.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And you're playing Augie this weekend.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
I would say for Bison fans, watch the game this weekend. There's nothing similar between East Tennessee State and North Dakota State. They're FCS schools, and that's it. That's the only similarity between the two of them.
And there's always going to be those splits. We've talked about that. There's always going to be the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
Everybody can't be a have. But in FCS now, let's throw the doomsday scenario out there that we were just talking about, okay?
This is doomsday.
Let's throw the doomsday scenario. I know that you believe, Dom, that the Mountain West is going to look to Texas.
Yeah.
Texas State, Texas San Antonio, Rice.
Texas State.
And North
Texas. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And there's reasons for that, and your thinking is exactly correct, that these conferences want to get into Texas because San Antonio is a big market. Rice is in Houston. That's a huge market. North Texas is just outside of Dallas. It's right by Frisco.
Yep.
And so it's just outside of, or it's in that, the Metroplex.
Yep.
I don't know who, like nobody cares about North Texas in Texas. Nobody cares about Rice. I get it.
Yep.
But it's all about the television eyeballs.
You could say we're in Texas.
And the market.
Yep.
And for recruiting, then the other schools left in the Mountain West, excuse me, can go into Texas and recruit and say, well, we're going to play 3 games a year in Texas.
We're coming this way.
Whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's one scenario. That's probably, if NDSU is going to remain in FCS, which there's no reason to believe that they're not going to remain in FCS for various reasons, then that would be the best scenario for NDSU, right?
Yes.
But what if, and this is total doomsday for NDSU, what if the Mountain West said, well, Texas doesn't really fit us geographically, and California is a great place to go for us as well, and they just lost,
they lost Fresno. Out there. Yep.
So what if we, the Mountain West, went to the Big Sky?
Oh, boy.
And took Sacramento State, Cal Davis, and just, from a location kind of markety thing, Northern Arizona. and you know what? Because they're good programs, they're good brands. How about if we took the 2 Montana schools as well, and Idaho, because Idaho's in a good market. They have a history of success in
FCS. They don't have FCS.
No, but if you're joining what is now,
right. Yep.
I mean, part of the problem with Idaho is that they were in some terrible conference.
They were in the Sun Belt for a bit.
So it's just awful. So, doomsday scenario.
Oh, man.
Because I'm Mr. Negative. The Mountain West takes those 6 schools. The Big Sky implodes because,
its 3 top schools are gone.
Right. And so, Eastern Washington would drop to Division II, and
they talked about cutting football anyway.
But Portland State would drop football probably.
Yep.
And so the Big Sky would be gone.
Man, oh man.
And then if you're NDSU, and by the way, the rest of the Valley schools in the Dakotas, you're left with an FCS where the Big Sky doesn't exist in 2027.
There's the tweet there for FCS would be trashed even further. That's probably the best way to describe it. That's the doomsday part of that. Is there a middle ground in there from my thoughts of Texas schools going, or is
the
in
middle,
between there?
The middle ground was that the Mountain West would take Sac State and Davis. Because
that's doomsday to me, because those schools are, you know what I mean? I know.
No, that's not got nothing to do with doomsday.
Ugh.
I mean, that's like because the Big Sky would survive, and the Montana schools would remain, and Idaho would remain.
Right.
So FCS would still be kind of as it is now, because Sac State's been okay for a number of years,
3 or 4 years.
They got to the semis, I think, 1 year, and that's fine. That'd be a loss, I guess. Although nobody really looks at Sac State and goes, "Ooh, FCS power." And then maybe they take a couple of the Texas schools as well, take San Antonio and Rice to get into those markets. And so then if the key for North Dakota State now, if they're not going anywhere, is to have FCS as strong as possible, then you want the want the Montana schools to stay, you want Idaho to stay, and you want whoever's left just to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, and the ones that go are more along the lines of Kennesaw State leaving, because who cares?
Right. Correct.
I mean,
all right. So let's
Missouri State leaving. Who cares in FCS?
So let's back this up now to the Pac-12 part of this because they still need 2 more. They're not done yet.
Correct.
Right? So they're at 6. You're, I know a guy that you've interviewed and talked to, John Wilner, who covers the Pac-12 well. He put out other schools to be in mind for the Pac-12. Memphis out there.
Yep.
UTSA out there.
Right. San Antonio, yep.
UNLV seems like a slam dunk.
UNLV
like Vegas
to me
is just like sitting there.
Yes, to me that one, I don't think UNLV is going to be in the Mountain West for very long.
I think that seems like they're donezo. Tulane he puts out there, which of course is in New Orleans. Who gave Kleiman's team a heck of a game this past week. Air Force in New Mexico were the other ones. This is to go to the Pac-12.
Yeah,
he's got out there.
Air Force is a brand. And then they're in Colorado Springs, which is just part of the Denver. You get that market for whatever market.
But they just got, Fort Collins with Colorado State. I don't know. Do they need both? I don't know if they need both.
No.
Yeah.
But Air Force is a brand like Army is a brand. Not to that level. The Army-Navy game, Army went to the AAC.
And then Navy followed them too, yeah.
Yes, and Navy followed them for that reason.
So those are the out there. So let's just go now to the Mountain West. Does the Mountain West, in your opinion, even look at an FCS school right now? Or are they
I think they're going to look at the Big Sky schools,
Okay.
yes. At least some of them.
Okay.
And they're going to kick the tires just because of geography. I mean, we just talked about that.
Yeah.
Is Sacramento a market they want to get into? And again, that allows them to recruit California. You can be at Utah State, for example, which is in Logan, Utah, which is a really small town, smaller campus, and they can go recruit California and say, well, you can play for us because we come to California every year.
Geography still has not changed, though, Mike. That's the thing on this. That's what I started the show with. Like, Fargo hasn't moved, North Dakota hasn't moved, and that's the thing that, if anything that we have found in reporting on this or in calling and talking to people, is that geography is still the same, and that is not beneficial to North Dakota State nor South Dakota State.
And television market is the same as well.
Yep.
It just, North Dakota and South Dakota just don't fit into any region of the country where there is an FBS conference.
Right.
It just, so then the next question would be, is there a way, if the nightmare scenario happens, is there, and I don't think that there is there some way for the leftovers in FCS that care about football to somehow join together and get to FBS? Because otherwise you're waiting for this Power 4 split, which
we've been waiting on that for 10 years now.
Right.
I've been talking about it for 10 to 12 years about that, and it still hasn't happened.
And it also ruins the NCAA basketball
Correct.
tournament.
They're not going to do that.
I just don't think so.
So let's break. We'll take a breath, settle down here a little bit. We'll come back and then discuss if there's any other pathways forward here for the top FCS brands out there. I use that term. I know you love it. Back on Hot Mic right after this. Is this breaking news from our guy Jay Bartley?
Wow.
He tweeted this out. Now that NDSU is going FBS, we have some catching up to do on the NIL side. Join the Green and Gold Collective today. Does he got the cart before the horse there? Does he know something we don't?
I sure hope that he has information. And I haven't worked on any. I just was literally woke up this morning, the sirens went off, and I've been running around since then.
I don't know if that's accurate yet.
Well, I hope that it is.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I am all in.
A couple emails come in on this. Dom and Mike, if NDSU is truly looking at moving up to the FBS, fans must show some urgency to renovate the Fargo Dome. That means voting yes on November the 5th. That I couldn't agree with more on that one.
Yeah, they need to upgrade it, even if they're staying.
Right.
I mean, they need the dome needs to be updated.
Yep.
And not in terms of everybody on the outside, especially like all these other FCS national media knuckleheads. They think that the dome renovation is about making it a bigger place. It's not.
No.
It's actually they're actually gonna lose some seats.
Yeah, making it actually tighter.
Make it a little bit smaller. It's about not having it be just a dark black cave.
It's about updating it to the 21st century. You know, it was built in 1993.
Yep.
It needs some TLC.
I mean, it actually was probably designed in the late 80s.
Yeah, right.
And completed and opened in 1993. And so it's not about making it bigger to be FBS ready.
No.
It's about having more than 2 women's bathrooms when there's crowds of 20,000 people there.
It's about it not having the concourse look like you're in a cave.
Yes,
when you're walking
and
around
being
there.
more than and having the lines for food and beer block the whole concourse because it's 6 feet wide.
Yep. Dom Dom, you and Mike usually bring up the money issue. Please discuss the money issue in realignments. Well,
okay, so this is interesting because, and this is one of the issues facing North Dakota State, which would also face, by the way, Montana and Montana State, is that those schools get almost zero state support for athletics. Montana and Montana State, we view them as, oh my gosh, these FCS powers. They are largely like NDSU is in that they have to raise all their own money for athletics because the state legislature
gives zero. Yeah.
Gives zero. And so a huge challenge for North Dakota State and the Montanas is the lack of state support. You can think of that whatever you want. There are those who say the state shouldn't be putting a ton of money into athletics. I would argue they could do more in North Dakota, especially with the coffers being overflowing with oil money. If you want to act like you're a big deal,
right?
I mean, Doug Burgum is out there running around saying that North Dakota is a player on the world stage. Okay, then have your universities be players in their little world as well. But Montana faces that same issue, and that's a hurdle for the Montana schools as well. The other thing with the Montana schools is they are pretty much tied together.
Yes.
A concern for North Dakota State, I think, would be that if they got an invite tomorrow from the Mountain West, that there would be a lot of activity in Grand Forks and in Bismarck with those aligned with UND to either stop it from happening or to make sure that UND
is included.
Can grab the coattails and be included, one or the other. And if it's not going to be the second, it would be the first.
Definitely be the first.
And they would not care because they just don't want to get left behind in this rivalry and whatever else they think it is.
And South Dakota does not have that issue. South Dakota, there's funding there is pretty good for each of those programs.
Yes, compared to NDSU.
Yeah. The money is out. What's happened in the Pac-12 Mountain West? It's like monopoly money of what they need to get in and what they're going to get.
Yeah, those numbers
crazy,
were unbelievable.
right?
Like $17 million to get out of the Mountain West, and that was wow. I went, holy cow!
But they're also counting on the fact when they join and it becomes official in 26 that they'll have a new TV deal, a pretty lucrative one that they can offset the cost of that of leaving. But yeah, that is not a chump change.
You look at Stanford and Cal now.
Correct.
Like what? If they would have just stuck with the Pac-12,
just hold
because Stanford
fast.
and Cal, they have no business trying to act like they're national powerhouses in athletics at that level.
Correct.
I can make the case that North Dakota State could easily compete in the Mountain West in most sports, right? And you'd have to ramp up basketball spending. You'd have to ramp up women's basketball. Football would compete right now. You'd have to ramp up spending. But NDSU, I'm not talking about NDSU going to a Power 5.
No.
I'm talking about them going to a mid-major, whatever they're called, group of 5 or group of 6, whatever they are now. But Stanford and Cal, it's like, what? Your brainiac schools, which is great.
It's great. We need those.
But I mean, what are you flying your athletes across the country for to play North Carolina State?
Stanford's going to Syracuse next week.
Yeah.
Syracuse, New York. That is a long way from home.
Yep. I mean, a plane flight's a plane flight, but it's more of a what? Does anybody in Berkeley, California? They didn't care about Cal when they were in the Pac-12. So now do they care about them that they're playing Syracuse and
North Carolina State?
Yeah, and
I can't imagine. No. Or Clemson. I think they play Clemson this week. Yeah, that doesn't make much sense there. And I don't. Do you see that? I don't. Granted, the ACC might blow up anyway.
Well, but that's Cal and Stanford can't leave because if they were allowed to leave, then Florida State and Clemson would go. Well, wait a second. I mean. Why can they leave and we can't?
Correct.
You're suing to keep us home,
to stay in the league,
but you're letting them go. So that's not going to happen.
We got to roll here in a minute. Percentage-wise, does this change where you were at with North Dakota State and its FBS future? What happened today?
I'm so beaten down by the geography and that whole thing that I'm just not optimistic anything's going to happen for NDSU. I wish it would. Yep. Obviously, I've been on this wagon now for 5 years, and I know others have been. There are some NDSU boosters out there, they can pound their chest and mock me, and they're right to do it. They've been advocating since 2013. There were those in Fargo who said after like the third championship, it's like, okay, we got to start looking ahead here because, clearly we're dominating FCS. I didn't know that it was going to last as long as it did.
Correct. Yep. But I think the writing was on the wall. The COVID year of 2020, seeing how the Bison were tied to Indiana State and Western Illinois, because North Dakota State wanted to play football. You and I have both reported on this, that they wanted to play that fall.
Oh, and I was told, and I have not, but I'll throw it out there. I was told that there was a school 70 miles north that openly advocated in the Missouri Valley against
to not play.
NDSU playing fall games. That UND said, well, no. And the rest of the Valley, to their credit, went, whatever. We don't care.
Yeah.
If they want to play fall games, play fall games. And so the UND, it didn't go anywhere. But I was told that they were advocating against NDSU being able to play fall games.
But once the Valley decided they weren't going to play, NDSU was tied to that.
Correct.
And that was
that
was
really,
the breaking point there.
That was the breaking point for Matt Entz, frankly.
Certainly was.
That he said, why are we being tied to Indiana State and Western Illinois?
Tethered was the word he kept. Why are we tethered to Western and Indiana State?
Because once Western and Indiana State said, well, we don't want to play, then the whole league was hosed.
Dunzo.
And then the schools like North Dakota State were going, well, but we want to play. And so it just, again, I'll always go back, looking at it 4 years later, you can say, and I admit this, I've admitted this to my conservative friends. It's like, at the time, it's like, bah! Did we overreact in some things? I think we probably did, but we didn't know it. But you know what? I mean, once the MAC played again and the Big Ten played again, I mean, that was like, okay.
I remember we said it on the show, but boy, it'd be nice if they were playing.
Yep,
you know?
Right. And so, but I'll own that.
Take the L on that,
Because it was, we just didn't know what was happening at the time. And so I think caution was the right way to go. But in retrospect, it's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, could enough Valley schools have wanted to play that? But there were things in place and things happening that
we just don't know.
That didn't make it easy at the time.
Going to be wild to see. Sure makes for an interesting couple days here on where things go. But again, I will say this before we wrap our segment. The fact that the Mountain West and the Pac-12 got together is not surprising. We thought this would happen one way or the other.
Yeah.
The Mountain West was going to take Oregon State or Washington State, or the Pac-12 was going to take the Mountain West schools.
Right, and the negotiations between the two leagues to sort of form another scheduling alliance for future broke down last weekend.
That should have been our indication
and part of that was because each side thought they held more leverage. The Mountain West said, well, we have all the leverage here, so and the Pac-2 schools or Pac-12 schools said, well, no, we have this big pile of money and we have the Pac-12 brand, so we have the leverage. And so then it just fell apart.
We saw how that goes.
And so now the Pac-12 is going to come out laughing last because they ended up taking what they wanted anyway.
Yep, and they're still going to add a couple more. We're going to find out there. Thanks for doing the emergency appearance. We appreciate that. You can go back, settle down, get your day started.
No way. I can't settle down now.
I've thrown it off kilter. I apologize.
I'm fired up now, baby.
Thanks for coming by, Mike.
You bet.
Mike McFeely joining us on a special Thursday appearance here. We'll break. We come back. Second hour of the show on tap. We'll do that when we come back after this.